Welcome to High Impact Tutoring Resources, a short presentation developed by the National Student Support Accelerator. This webinar will focus on resources and tools for districts as they design and implement high impact tutoring. There is a large body of evidence that supports the effectiveness of tutoring. Not only has tutoring been shown to be effective, it is more effective than almost any other intervention that has been tested. Its effectiveness in many ways is not surprising, given that tutoring can target the specific needs of each student, and tutoring from consistent tutors can help develop close adult-student relationships, which can improve students' engagement in school and their overall well-being. With that in mind, we at the Accelerator have created a variety of tools to support districts in implementing high-impact tutoring with fidelity. The most relevant tool for a district or school developing a new tutoring program is the District Playbook, a step-by-step research-backed guide for districts to design and implement a high-impact tutoring program, including guidance on whether to develop your own program internally or partner with a tutoring provider. But before we go into detail on the playbook, I want to share a few of our other relevant tools. If you're going to develop your own tutoring program internally, the Toolkit for Tutoring Programs provides practical step-by-step guidance on how to design and implement a research-backed tutoring program. It includes everything from how to determine which students to focus on, how to recruit and train tutors, to even sample letters to parents about your new program in both English and Spanish. We also have a tutoring cost calculator to help you understand what your program will cost. If you are considering partnering with a tutoring provider to support your tutoring program, we have a searchable tutoring database of over 200 tutoring providers. Tech platforms and materials includes details of their model, geographic location served, and evidence of their effectiveness. Districts can use this database to identify potential partners. If you plan to focus your tutoring program on early literacy, please see our Early Literacy Tutoring Toolkit, which includes tools and resources for tutor training and ongoing professional development, and guidance for selecting early literacy tutoring materials, including reviews of specific programs. The Tutoring Quality Improvement System, or TQIS, is a rapid, free, and research-based tool that assesses a tutoring program's quality against a set of industry standards and provides targeted recommendations to improve program quality. Districts and schools can use the TQIS to provide guidance on improving their program's quality as they develop and continuously improve their tutoring program. Today, we are going to focus on the District Playbook, as it is written with districts in mind and research-backed guidance for each step of the process. The playbook is divided into 4 stages, but we want to be clear, it is messier than the graphic looks here, and there will be much overlap between the stages. In general, the stages that any district will go through in adopting high-impact tutoring program includes laying the foundation, planning for operations, designing for impact in your particular context, and implementing the program. We will dig into each stage a bit more on the following slides. To lay the foundation for a successful high-impact tutoring program, there are several key activities. An inclusive task force that sets the stage for longer-term stakeholder engagement is critical. For this type of tutoring to be successful, you will need the input and buy-in from a range of folks, including educators, administrators, school leaders, and when possible, caregivers and students. The trick is to balance the need for input and buy-in with using time efficiently. Having a clear task force leader and clear goals will be important to achieve that balance. The playbook includes a checklist of potential members, description of characteristics for the task force leader, as well as sample goals. Another important early task is to determine the focus area for the tutoring program. All districts would like to be able to provide tutoring for all students every semester. However, in most cases, resource limitations require tutoring programs to focus. We believe it is important to use student data alongside an understanding of existing supports and identifying your focus area. In our work, we have seen districts focus on early literacy and middle grades math, such as Algebra 1, as these are gatekeeping skills for students. We have also seen a focus on transitional grades, such as those moving into middle school or high school. And we have also seen some tutoring programs that focus on multilingual learners. Program scale is also an important early decision. The key here is that while we want to reach as many students as possible, following what research says drives quality is essential. Because so much of the impact we believe is driven by the consistent relationship with the tutor, this is not a program that can be diluted and still remain successful. So you can maximize the number of students, but only within the parameters of a program that maintains the dosage, tutor consistency, and other research-backed best practices. And of course, it's important to clearly lay out your specific goals for the program in this early stage. Here, we will share some specific examples from the playbook. There are 3 types of goals to consider. Of course, the primary goal is around academic growth, but setting goals for the student's experience and stakeholder satisfaction is just as important. Here is an excerpt from the playbook. As you can see, for each type of goal, we share an explanation along with examples of metrics and a set of reflection questions to help you consider your local context as you develop your program's goals. For example, for academic growth, it's important to consider how to integrate academic goals for the tutoring program into existing metrics and systems rather than creating a new set of metrics and systems. For student experience goals, we have seen districts set goals around increased self-efficacy or a sense of belonging. And for stakeholder satisfaction, we have seen districts set goals around student and caregiver satisfaction. The playbook also includes some specific examples of how districts are setting tutoring goals to make it easier for districts to visualize what goals might look like for their own district. For example, in Dallas, they specifically aligned their tutoring academic goals with their existing MAP assessments, as these assessments are 3 times per year, which allows for frequent progress monitoring. In Providence, they use standardized test scores and student pass rates to set and monitor progress toward academic goals, and also include student surveys to track student perceptions of their learning. The second stage in the playbook is planning for operations. Planning for operations also includes a number of critical steps. Developing and sharing a reasonable timeline will be important to keep everyone on track. We have a checklist of activities in the playbook, each with a range of the time it requires to help guide you in developing your own timeline. You may also want to consider conducting a pilot. Many districts conduct a pilot first to better understand how the program might work and make adjustments prior to rolling it out on a broader basis. The playbook includes several planning templates to support developing a pilot. A budget will also be important for planning purposes at this point. It will be important to recognize not only the incremental costs, but also the efforts of existing staff members. We include a budget template that is downloadable and provides specific categories to make sure you have considered the different types of costs. The tutoring cost calculator I mentioned earlier is available on our website and can help you with your budget as well. And of course, the question of funding is top of mind. While this is a unique moment where funding is available through the American Rescue Program, we are encouraging districts to think proactively about how they might continue funding their tutoring program after 2023. And we know academic achievement gaps existed prior to the pandemic, and high-impact tutoring is particularly effective at accelerating student learning. Therefore, at the Accelerator, we firmly believe that high-impact tutoring should be built into the education system for the long run. We encourage districts to think about how and what information and additional resources they may need in the future to continue their tutoring programs when ARPA funding is spent. For example, in Chicago, which started tutoring prior to the pandemic, philanthropy funded their high-impact tutoring in the beginning and slowly decreased their support over time, which provided Chicago Public Schools the time to collect and show evidence of the program's effectiveness that justified funding the program from other sources. It will be important to continue engagement activities across all stakeholders through this and every stage. The playbook includes a rationale and best practices for engaging each stakeholder group, from students, teachers, and tutors to labor unions and district leadership. As an example from this stage, here is the budget template in the playbook. And the playbook has an accompanying workbook that includes additional resources, such as a link to a budget template. As you can see, the template is detailed to help leadership capture the full costs of the program, including additional effort of existing staff and technology expenditures. Now that you have laid the foundation and planned for effective operations in stages 1 and 2, it's time to design your tutoring program. One of the biggest decisions to make is whether your district has a capacity to grow your own tutoring program or whether you should partner with a tutoring provider. Growing your own program has certain advantages. It creates more buy-in internally and more deeply embeds the program into your school operations. However, partnering offers advantages as well. An existing provider will likely be able to get started with less effort on the part of the district and will already have trained tutors and systems in place. As well, the hiring, coaching, and if necessary, reduction of tutoring staff all take place within the tutoring provider, shielding the district from those responsibilities. The playbook has a section for each of these options. If you decide to partner with a provider, there are tools that support how to select and contract with a tutoring provider, as well as how to work with a tutoring provider to adapt their model to your local context. If you decide to grow your own, the playbook offers guidance on how to design your tutoring program aligned with research-based best practices, as well as how to recruit and train tutors. And the playbook links to the ACCELERATOR's toolkit for tutoring programs that provides templates and examples for everything from job descriptions to pre-service training and data collection tools. Regardless of your choice, there are 2 critical systems to build in: a data collection process that makes it easy for tutors and educators to share student information, as well as to track progress toward the goals you set earlier, as well as a system for continuous improvement. It means regularly collecting data, reviewing it, and adapting your program to improve outcomes. And you will notice a theme here. It continues to be critical to continue stakeholder investment activities throughout each stage of your tutoring program. Here are some examples of the tools in this section of the playbook. This is a decision tree to help districts understand whether they have or are able to secure what is needed successfully to grow their own tutoring program. As you can see, it includes things such as internal staff capacity and time to design and operate the program, the systems required to support data needs, and more. There are also in-depth tools for those who choose to partner with a tutoring provider that is broken into several sections in priority order. The first section covers high priority areas, such as whether the provider has the ability to meet the scale of the program you are planning at a cost you can afford, as well as whether the provider can meet your district's local and state requirements. The next section of the Selecting a Provider tool guides a district through understanding the efficacy of the tutor provider, either through research studies or through a list of specific program elements that you will see align with the framework that we described earlier. And the final section of this tool focuses on logistics. It aims again to help you understand the complexity of partnering with a particular provider. including how easy will it be for your district to meet the needs of the tutoring provider, logistics such as physical space requirements and scheduling. The Selecting a Provider Tool section provides guidance for understanding how aligned a tutoring provider is with your district's operations. There is also an in-depth tool for those who choose to partner with a tutoring provider that is broken into several sections in priority order. This first section covers high priority areas such as whether the provider has the ability to meet the scale of the program you are planning at a cost you can afford, as well as whether the provider can meet your district's local and state requirements. This next section of the Selecting a Provider tool guides a district through understanding the efficacy of the tutoring provider, either through research studies or through a list of specific program elements that you will see aligned with the framework that we described earlier. And the final section of this tool focuses on logistics. It aims again to help you understand the complexity of partnering with a particular partner, including how easy will it be for your district to meet the needs of the tutoring provider, logistics such as physical space requirements and scheduling. The Selecting a Provider tool section provides guidance for understanding how aligned a tutoring provider is with your district's operations. This will allow you to understand not as much whether you should or shouldn't partner with a particular tutoring provider, but how complex and how much adaptation might be required for you to work with a particular provider. Things such as, do the provider's instructional strategies and approach align with yours? How easy or difficult will it be to integrate the provider's assessment system and technology platform? The last stage, which you definitely don't want to forget, is implementation. Actually, providing high-impact tutoring for students. In order to implement, you need to select the specific students who will participate. This selection should be based on the goals of the tutoring program, and it should be informed by data on student needs. Having a clear policy on which students should get tutoring will make it easier to implement tutoring effectively in schools. Once you know which students need tutoring, you'll also need to schedule tutoring into the school day for these students. This scheduling can be one of the biggest challenges in some districts, and I'll talk a bit more about scheduling in a minute. In addition to scheduling, you'll also need to positively communicate the program to students and their caregivers. It's important to do it this way that it mitigates stigma and builds positive relationships with students with the tutoring program and with the tutor. The Playbook provides links to the tutoring toolkit, which includes sample communications for a range of stakeholders, including students and caregivers. Executing the tutoring program is the exciting part. You'll want to collect data to track student progress and for continuous improvement. Stakeholder engagement will also continue to be important. You can share updates and success stories to sustain and even build support for the program. In the Playbook, we include best practices and tools for boosting engagement and integrating continuous improvement. As I mentioned, scheduling can be a challenge as tutoring is meant to be supplemental to classroom work, not to replace core instruction, and it requires a minimum of 3 times per week. In the Playbook, we identify some best practices, such as building it into the school day so that you can reach the students who need it the most, and doing what you can to schedule in a way that minimizes any stigma associated with participation. We also provide some approaches to avoid. For example, try not to pull students out of lunch or out of core classes. The Playbook also gives concrete examples of scheduling approaches that we have seen work well, such as using intervention periods or some elective time for tutoring. We provide a description of what some districts have done along with pros and cons of each approach. This example discusses using extension blocks to provide tutoring. This is an example schedule showing how the school used flex time to provide tutoring. So that completes the 4 stages of designing and implementing a high-impact tutoring program: laying the foundation for your high-impact tutoring program, planning for effective operations, designing for impact, and implementing high-impact tutoring. Thank you so much for allowing us to share some of the guidance for high-impact tutoring. We at the National Student Support Accelerator seek to ensure that every student in need has access to an effective tutor who champions their learning and success. So that completes the 4 stages of designing and implementing a high-impact tutoring program: laying the foundation for your high-impact tutoring program, planning for effective operations, designing for impact, and implementing high-impact tutoring. Thank you so much for allowing us to share some of the guidance for high-impact tutoring. We at the National Student Support Accelerator seek to ensure every student in need has access to an effective tutor who champions their learning and success. Housed at the Annenberg Institute at Brown University, the Accelerator launched to address student learning needs caused by COVID-19. We do not provide tutoring directly, but conduct, coordinate, and synthesize research and translate findings into actionable best practices. Working with states, districts, schools, and tutoring organizations, the Accelerator provides research-based best practices through tools and technical assistance to accelerate the growth of high-impact tutoring opportunities for K-12 students in need. To access the tools and resources mentioned in this webinar and more, visit www.studentsupportaccelerator.org.